Welcome to Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole, the podcast dedicated to you loving and putting yourself first. Others have come first in your life for years, and you know it's time for that to change. You're about to be empowered to set healthy boundaries, confidently have hard conversations, unapologetically put yourself first, and live the peaceful life you deserve. Remember, self-love is essential, and loving yourself sets the stage for every other love in your life. So get ready to embrace self-love like never before with your host, Coach Tammy Nicole.
Hey, it is Loving Me Before I Love You. We are having an amazing time during this season over here at the podcast, and today would be no different. So, a lot of times we talk about parenting, but the part of parenting that we do not bring up often is co-parenting. And today we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about co-parenting with love, how we are thriving and not surviving. I have been a co-parent now for, how long have I been divorced? How long ago was 2017? So with that, like 7 years, 8 years, somewhere up in there. And co-parenting has had its ups and it's had its downs. However, I have always done it with love. But talking about it has not been something that has been on my platform. And so I kind of wanted to do it this time. And no, I don't have my co-parent on my show before all of you are thinking, because I already know that's what you're thinking. Ooh, we're going to get the juicies. You might get some juicies, but it won't be from him. But I do have a guest who is a co-parent, and he is a father of two. He is also a divorcee, and his name is Yves. Welcome to the show, Yves.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we don't talk about co-parenting enough. I think it is, I don't want to say it's taboo. I just think that a lot of times we are so busy bashing the other parent that we don't talk about the functionality of actually working together for the betterment of our children. You know, the kids didn't put themselves here. And they still need to have like upbringing that is cohesive, same page, same direction, you know, regardless of what we as adults do in our personal lives. So when you hear the word co-parenting, or from your own experience, like what does co-parenting mean to you? And how has your perspective on it evolved over time?
Well, he changed first of all, my perspective changed quite a lot. And just a little bit about myself. Okay. I'm from the Republic of Congo, and, I came here to the United States when I was 19 years old. So I've always been like, the environment that I grew up in is always two-parent household. There's never been co-parenting, or there's not a lot of case of divorce, just to put it this way, right? Like every home that I know, every people that I hung out with, every people, friends that I grew up with, always had a two-parents household. So it's only when I came here to the United States that I saw the difference. A lot of households only had one parent. And to me to be honest, it was just mind-boggling, because, you know, I come from a different culture, seeing something totally different. And coming up here, looking at the reality of the United States, I was surprised. Right, I was very surprised, because that was never my experience. And when you seeing how this situation even affected children was, to me, was also quite shocking. So I never imagined in a million years that I will find myself in this kind of situation. The same situation. So, in the beginning, it was quite a shock, because I never imagined that I would be divorced. I never imagined that I have my children spending time in two homes, right? It's two different systems, two different viewpoints, to different approaches. So all those things had to be put into perspective. And as you say in the beginning, the beginning of co-parenting is usually rough.
Yeah.
It's rare that you see cases of parents actually sitting down and hashing out, okay, this is the plan. Even if you have a clear plan, right? The beginning is always rough because there's a lot of feelings attached to the situations, the past situation. Parents, they have to vent their anger. They have to vent certain, like, their frustration. And also they have to deal with the reality of the marriage failing, right? Something, the family broken up. So for me personally, I had to deal with all those things. But the hardest part for me was living away from my children, right? So they stay with their mom. So I had a very difficult time wrapping my head around, you know what? I was spending the majority of my time with those kids, right? Because I used to work at overnight. So my routine used to be before I will sleep during the day. When they come back from school, they'll eat, sit, and then before going to work, I'll give them the shower. We hang out. I give them their little snack, get them ready for bed, and then that's when I get ready to go to work. Right, that was our routine for a couple of years, and my children got used to that. And I got used to, as a parent, I got used to that too, because that was the only time that I had to literally had time to spend with my boys. And after this was all gone, it was now dealing with all those strong emotion, like the guilt, the anger, the attack, all those things that you had to deal with. So that made co-parenting in the beginning very difficult. And to be fair, right? And I'm going to be honest here. I am not going to talk about, I'm only going to talk about things from my perspective.
Absolutely.
Because, talking about my ex-wife's perspective, I think it's not fair because she's not here to defend herself. Right. So I will only talk about how I see things. She probably experienced things from a different perspective as well, which is not totally normal. But for me, it was just the loss of my kids. And now you have two angry parents, two disappointed parents, right? Sitting there, not having to deal with each other and trying to make concessions. So already making concession when you're married is a bit difficult. It was a bit difficult. I'm only talking for my marriage. So now separately, it's no longer the best. You're not looking at the best. Before, when we were together, it's for the best of the family. Now, when you separate it, it's no longer the best of the family. It's now you have to look at what's best for the children. But when you have anger behind it, the best interest of the children becomes, okay, I'm trying to prove that I'm the better parent. And that becomes a tug of war. Right? So our beginning was very, very difficult. Personally, it took me, I had to go through, because I went through a lot of change, like a huge change from that period of my time, my life. It was a huge change of me. I changed internally, spiritually, mentally. I had to change myself from the ground up. And that allowed me to now look at co-parenting, even approach it very differently. All right. But as I say, when only looking at the beginning, it was very rough. It was very, very, very rough. That was a very rough experience. It was, as I say, it was a war. Every parent trying to up the other one, right? And all those things that were just guided by anger, disappointment, and as I say, just straight anger.
Yeah.
You know?
So I just you mentioned how the systems are different in two different
Mm-hmm.
homes now
Mm-hmm.
that, kids are living between two homes.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about that, even for myself, is always, man, why does the systems have to be different when
Mm-hmm.
they were once the same?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't the separation, even though we separated as a union,
Mm-hmm.
if we were like physically operating in the same manner from a systems perspective,
Mm-hmm.
we're all creatures of habit. How does the system change, even though, let's just say, geographically, our positions changed? You know what I mean? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
two different homes now. I just think systems are systems. And if
Mm-hmm.
we were working them, and we're creatures of habit, that
Mm-hmm.
we should still be operating in the same system.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think a lot of times, as you mentioned, like the anger or what have you that comes out from the actual separation, it's almost like a rebellion,
Mm-hmm.
being rebellious towards jacking up the system. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
creating a riff in
Mm-hmm.
order to say it's my way now, or I'm doing it this way, even
Mm-hmm.
though that way never existed.
I think okay. You can it's I think it's one way to look at it, right? The other way I can also say is because the system existed was because it's two people with two different backgrounds, two different viewpoints, two different value. I mean, I'm not saying values because when you get married, you're trying to have value that's kind of close, but the
Mm-hmm.
values are still different, right? So you're putting those two people together. So the system exists because those two people are trying their best to make something work,
Correct.
right? It's like iron sharpening iron, like, well, right? Like
Yeah.
you are trying to make something work. That's why the system happened, because as you are working to make your situation work,
Mm-hmm.
you're coming up with rules, right? Okay. For our couple, this is what we're going to do. You're
Mm-hmm.
coming up with you're creating visions, you're
Correct.
creating goals, right? All those things are part of your system. So now when you don't have those two people together, right, change happen. As you say, that anger can come into play as well, where you want to change your views, you want to change things, and then you want to rebel against the system. It's one thing. But also, if you look at it from the perspective of now that the person is outside, you are outside of the system,
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing now, you are starting to evolve on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's as if, okay, we are in the bus, taking the bus taking the same direction with the same bus. So whatever the bus is going to feel, everybody inside the bus is going to feel it too, right?
Right.
But the minute I get off the bus and one person stay on the bus, or you take a different bus, what happened to me here doesn't happen to you over there. And whatever happened to you on this side shape your personality, shape your perspective, and shapes your views the same way as me as on the other side as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that the way I'm approaching things and the way I'm looking at things is no longer in line with the way we used to do things in the beginning. Why?
Yeah.
Because we are two different people and we're looking for two different things at that point. It's no longer about the system, but it's about us evolving outside of the system. That's why things are different. That's why the system doesn't exist anymore, because we are not trying to live together, right? But we are trying to not get used to, but tolerate.
Reestablish. Yeah, you have
Yeah,
to reestablish new
exactly. You
norms.
raise new norms for yourself, but at the same time tolerating the other person with his change as well. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer me trying to impose myself on you or trying to guide you in a certain manner. No, you're doing your own thing, but I have to tolerate this person because we have children together.
Yeah.
Right?
But so I guess the next question for me is, question/comment. It's more so about when we have children, why is it so difficult for us to just come in and create a baseline that is outside of us as parents and solely focused on them as children, right? And what I mean by that is, yes, you have your household, I have mine. My rules in my house are my rules. However, and your rules are your rules, but the kids that are following the rules are ours. And why is it so difficult to create rules that both parties can agree with that are implemented in both households regarding the kids? Why is it so difficult? Because, and I'm saying it's difficult from a general standpoint of the transition. I do believe that there are harmonious co-parenting relationships that this may actually exist, or it may evolve into over time. I just think we take too much time trying to get there when kids only have this much time being under the tutelage of our thumbs, of being able to even cultivate them and nurture them and guide them. I mean, you only technically have them till they're 18, right? So unless you're getting divorced when the child is 1 years old, the time frame of actually doing the co-parenting thing where it really matters and really affects the kids is a very small window. But we tend to take up so much of that window in our own mess, in our own individual foolishness, really. Because regardless if the relationship is no longer from a romantic connection, you're in relationship with that individual for the remainder of your life because you have children with them. And it's like, how do we encourage or give tools to parents to get out of their own way because they're hindering and hurting the children's own, I would say, like, path of blossom? You know what I mean? Like, because we inclusive, you know what I mean? Like, I think we're so hell-bent on us and how we feel about that relationship dissolving or not being what it was or what you hoped it to be when you got into it. Because I don't think people get married to plan the divorce. You know what I mean? I don't think that's the goal line. You know, it happens for a plethora of reasons. But how do we, as the adults in the equation, shorten the time frame? And this is more so for people who are probably in the midst of getting divorced, recently divorced. You may have been divorced a long time and haven't really thought about how your activity is really affecting these kids. But how do we shorten the time frame of getting out of our own way, getting out of the emotional riffraff, and create a system that can be uniformed in both homes so that the child has continuity and stability, regardless of the fact that they're going from one house to the next, as far as interact, like the actual interaction, so that they can, even though they're going into two different physical spaces, the system is the same. So it don't feel as different in both spaces.
Okay. Well, it takes, I'm going to be honest here, it takes a lot for parents to get over the anger and things like that. And this is just, now it's just the therapist in me. It's going to talk. It's just, you have to deal with your emotional, like the emotional side of it. Right? Because linking your life to getting married All right. It's not just signing papers,
Mm-hmm.
but you are linking your life. Basically, you changing everything about yourself to be in line with this person that you have chosen to be in your life, which means like your habit change, your demeanor change, the way you look at things change, right? Everything about you change so that you're in line with the person that's in front of you, the person that you invited, that you married, basically. So that rift, that the divorce basically cut those things. And at
Yeah.
the end, when it happened, you find yourself at loss. You're like, okay, everything about me was in line with this person, but this person is no longer there. And there's a big question that comes along is, who am I outside of that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that if you have difficulty answering that question, it's going to be very difficult for you to get over things because if you do not answer that question, you become angry at the person. Like, okay, you put me in this situation. It's
Right.
because of you that I lost my sense of purpose. I lost my sense of direction. Right? It's all those anger that comes out. So as a therapist, I always tell my client, you know what? Deal with your emotion. Right? If it happens, find someone to talk to. Go into therapy. Work things out. As
Mm-hmm.
you work things out, you understand to learn. You learn to deal with the emotional side of you.
Mm-hmm.
Then now you can. The earlier you start, the better. It doesn't mean that for everybody it's going to take a short amount of time, all right? But as you go through the process of therapy, and then you're working with somebody that understands you,
Mm-hmm.
you are starting to understand that the children are the priority, right? And the children are not just yours, but it's both people.
Yeah.
And what's for the best interest of the children is not you putting your anger in front, but it is you putting yourself back, working on your stuff, but at the same time leaving the other part of you taking care of his own stuff too, of the children too. So the children are in the middle. You have half access, and the other person has half access. But if you still have that anger, and you're putting that anger in front of you, what you're going to do is sometimes you're going to stop the other person having access to them. All
Mm-hmm.
right. One thing that I started doing from the beginning, all right, was understanding that, as I say, my children are half me and half them. I had to really sit. I'm sorry, my children are half me and half her, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I had to sit and start understanding, it's like, because they are half and half, I can't sit here and tell my children that I love you when I only love the part of them that is
Came
me.
from you.
Exactly. So in
Mm-hmm.
order for me to love my children fully, I had to say to myself, I still love their mom, not romantically, but I
Yes.
love that person as a person. I mean, she's a person who spent a lot of time with me. Today we might be fighting, right? Today we might not be in the same place, but she gave me two children,
Absolutely.
right? So I have to love her in order for me to love my children fully, because it's not going to be fair to them for me to only love half of them. And it
Absolutely.
was a process that I started very, very early. And I'm going to tell you, it's not the easy thing.
Oh, I
It's not the
know.
easiest thing, right? But I have to
Oh, I
force
know.
myself to put myself in that situation. So if you start this process early, right? You start all this process early. You go to therapy, you working on you also, and figuring out what's the new direction in your life. Because once you find something that you align to, something that
Yeah.
drive your purpose, you don't have a lot of time or energy to put into other things that
The negativity.
no, you don't have that kind of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you don't have that kind of energy. So at that point, you're able now to look at the situation. Okay, this here is over, right? So he or she is going to take care of her part, and I am going to take care of my part. But
Right.
outside of that, I also have my life to live. So I'm going to start taking care of the things that I'm supposed to be taking care of for myself. And he's going to start taking care of the things that he's taking care of on her side, he or she, right?
Correct.
And then everybody move on that path. But it starts I always tell my client, it starts with you, right? It starts with you.
Absolutely.
Right. If you waiting for the other person to do something for you to feel good about yourself, then guess what? You are still giving the other person power over you. Because if somebody can come in and influence the way you think, influence the way you feel, influence the way you behave, that person or that situation is control over you.
Yeah.
So you have to get back to a situation where all those three aspects are controlled by you and only you. Only when you have control over those three parts, emotional side, your action, and your mental, then you in a better position to say, you know what? The children are the center, right? The children are the priority. Let's work on that. But anything outside of that, that's going to be my life. So I have my life, I have the children, and that's about it. Right. So I think that's the way I personally, that's the way I approached it. So work on you first. And I know there's no way that you can say, okay, I'm going to do the divorce first and compartmentalize things. You can't do that because life comes at you different ways. But try to work on your issue, try to work on yourself as things move along. And you will see, going to therapy, working on your emotional, that's going to help you prioritizing things. That's going to help you shorten the time when you're going to have to realize that the priority are the children. You put the children in front, and then anything else outside of what you cannot control has nothing to do with you. Right.
Agreed.
So I think that was my approach. Right. So I'm like, when my children are here, when I can control the time, I control them. But when they're not with me, they're with their mom, fine. I have access. I can go to their school, talk to the teachers, whatever. When it comes to schools and all those things, and we have parent teacher conference, we go together, right? And then she would give me that update. Okay, this is what happened. What's going on? This is what he's doing. This is what he's doing. Whatever the teacher tell us, she would give me okay. Oh yeah, the teacher says this. But at home we've been doing this. So if there's area where we can help our children, we're like, okay, what can we do together to help him? Like, oh yeah, sometimes buy those type of books because she spends a lot more time with them than I do, right? So okay, buy those type of books, do this, do that on their breaks. Work with them on those things. I'm like, okay, so when they come to my house, I take whatever she tells me and implement it in my house too, so that we are in alignment on those little aspects. It's not 100%, right? But it's a start. But it took us a while to get here. But starting on that, as I say, starting on the emotional side, starting on understanding what you can and cannot control can definitely help you shorten the amount of time when you're going to start taking priority, looking at children as a priority instead of putting your anger in front.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, today's episode is a good one. I know you're enjoying it, and we'll get back to it shortly. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that Tammy would love for you to share any questions, comments, or topic ideas you have with her. All you have to do is send them to her in an email to podcast@IamTammyNicole.com. Thank you, and without further ado, let's get back into today's show.
When co-parenting, right, you talked about focusing on yourself, healing from within, healthy boundaries. How do you implement the healthy boundaries within the co-parenting relationship? Because you now have different sets of boundaries now that you're no longer a unit. So how do you implement them? What healthy boundaries should be in place? I know we can always say that, to each its own, and everybody's different, but I still think that there are some core boundaries that can be put in place in a co-parenting dynamics.
Well, first thing first, I respect. I'm not going to tolerate any sort of disrespect. Right? That, to me, that's the biggest line. Right? We can't tolerate that. Mm-hmm. We might be angry, we might not like each other, but at least we can be courteous,
right,
and respectful in the way we speak to each other. All right? So no, nothing like that. And it's also understanding when somebody, to me, it was also like when you see that you're getting into verbal exchange, whether it's over text or a thing, sometimes it's okay to just not engage. All right? Because the more you engage, the more you're telling the other person that, you know what, it's okay to do that. All right? So it's okay sometimes, I say what I had to say. And after that, I'm done. All right? Because I always say to my client, you teach other people how you want to be treated. All right? If you don't want to, if you don't teach them, they will treat you the way they want.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the big problem. So it's okay not to engage. Right? It's okay to say what you have to say and step back. Even if you get thousands of nasty email after what you have to say, step back. Like, okay, I say what I had to say. Let your anger run. Sometimes some message. I mean, there's some messages. Sometimes you don't really need to read. You don't need to look into after you know that your message has been passed, right? And then the rest, you keep doing what you're supposed to do. All right. And then I think respect is one thing. Teaching, as I say, also boundaries to help people. Teaching people how to how you want to be treated. Another thing that I always it's also deciding the figuring out the mode of communication that work for you. Right? Some people think that I have to call the person all the time, or I have to have your phone number to talk. No, right? Me and my ex-wife understood from the get-go that phone call don't work for us. Right? The best way we communicate, make sure that everything is on point, is through emails. Right? I email you, okay, this is what I saw. I put the points together, clear. I send it to you. If there's anything that you want if you want to respond back, tell me exactly what the point of view, the perspective is. Make it clear a certain point. You send it back, and then if we can find something together, but that's the best way to communicate that we found, and it has worked for us. I'm not saying that, as you said, not everybody is the same. Right? For some people, emailing doesn't work. It's conversation, right? But it's just that we did not want to get into like tit for tat kind of thing, and then having phone conversation all the time could not work. And then also one thing that I also was fearing, because as we said, when you marry someone, you have attachment, you are linked to this person, whether spiritually, emotionally, and physically as well. All right. So there's always that potential door. But once you know that the relationship hasn't worked, right, it's also understanding that that door need to be closed. Right. So the healthy boundaries is also making sure that the door stay closed, because you can't be going back and forth.
Yeah.
That create a lot more trouble in the long run.
Absolutely.
Right. So to me it was, we're dealing with this. We are divorced. that door that was open, that I stay open, I have to close it. But as I'm closing it, I'm also dealing with the emotional side of things as well, because I work in therapy and all those things, and I'm working on that as well. But I'm making sure that I'm strong enough to keep that door closed all the time. And boundaries help me do that.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
So I think that's that. I think to me, that was my approach. As I say, earlier approach, that was how I approached it. But as I say, for people, it's different. And I apologies. I think the figuring out how you communicate is I think is one of the big thing after that. Because if you don't figure out how you guys best communicate, it's going to be very difficult to co-parent.
Yeah. I think friendship at some point has to develop between the two parents. That I think is the hardest thing to do. But I think when you remind yourself that at some point you liked them, at some point you were in love with them, at some point your relationship had a lot of love in it. That to me, that's the first little portion towards coming over the hump, right? It's like, as much as you want to be mad, angry, and hate them for the dismantle of the relationship, they're still a person you once loved. And as you mentioned before, you can't really fully love your children without loving the other half of them. Right. And so you move into a different type of love, but it's still love. And I think that we have to learn to become friends because they're still people. You know what I mean? Like, yes, they don't occupy your life in the same position, but they still human. They're still people. They still have feelings. They still have, a connection to you that you can never change. No matter if you try. There's no changing your child's DNA and giving them another parent or a different parent. You're with them. You chose them. I think that's the other part that we have to deal with is, even though this relationship didn't pan out the way we desired it, pan out the way that we wanted it to, we still made the choice to be with that individual.
Yes, we friendship. Okay, this is what I'm going to say. Friendship can develop if that's possible, and if you guys are open to it, right? Because there's certain circumstances where friendship is not the healthiest route. It doesn't mean that you're not courteous. It doesn't mean that you're not respectful. But being friend or allowing that person back into your life, even as close, is probably not the safest option for you. So,
yeah, and I guess I call it friendship because of the high level of connection that you did once have. That calling them an acquaintance just seems so like below the belt, if that makes sense. It doesn't, when I say the friendship, I'm not saying that they need to be in your business as a friend, but I am saying that you are having cordial, friendly interactions that when things come up for the kids, everybody can be there. Yeah. Right. And not be there and you're on this side of the bleachers and they on that side of the bleachers. You can be there and be in the same section cheering for the same kid, not still separate, but present. You know what I mean? And so from that perspective, I couldn't call them an acquaintance. I would have to be able to call them friend, like, and be friendly. You know what I mean? Like, not necessarily like on the phone with them, kiki all day, or talking about what you did on your vacation or anything of the sort. your conversation with them could still 100% be solely on children and what they have going on, but we're friendly and I can pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, so-and-so did blah, 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 blah. You know, when they come home, ask them about it. Or, you know, like without having to be super distant or super formal, you know, as you mentioned, doing emails. Like emails to me is a very formal exchange. It's not the warmth behind. There's no warmth. There's no familiarity around it. It's more like we're handling business. And, you know, as you mentioned, these are the points. Like here's your bullet points. Here's what you need to know. Here's what you need, you know. Yeah. And take it for what it is. I just think when we get into co-parenting, it's more so like, you have to think about these kids are going to grow up and become adults and hopefully get married and hopefully have kids of their own. And even that interaction and turning into grandparents and, you know, in-laws for whoever their spouse is, being able to be at that wedding, you know, if it was a girl, you got to sit on the same side and give her away. You can't be like, oh yeah, I give her away from down here. Your mother going to give her away from, you know, 2 feet over. It's just more so like, how do we build the friendship that you're cordial enough to be in the same space and laugh about different things. You can even reminisce on memories that you had as a unit. Unit meaning children involved, not just not reminiscing on your relationship of your dating phase or, you know, the things you did prior to the kids, but more so the stuff we did with the kids. Like if we went on an actual family trip and, you know, somebody came outside with 2 mismatched socks to go to, you know, like little stuff that is still like a fond memory. It's their childhood. Both parties. I mean, we all know you were there. I mean, they didn't get here without you being there. You know what I mean? So just, you know, I'm a realist. So building that level of friendship, though, that will allow the kids to feel comfortable. I think that the hardest story, and you talk about being a therapist, I'm a therapist too. The hardest story to hear from grown adult people from divorced homes is that they parents can't get along. And then now they have kids and they want to have this harmonious Christmas dinner and everybody can't come. And they're now having to explain to their kids why grandpa ain't coming this time and it'll be grandma and so. You know what I mean? Like those are the hardest stories to hear because you have grown adults crying in your office because all they want is for them to be able to have a picture perfect family one time. And picture perfect meaning everybody in the room at the same time, one time. It doesn't matter that you have the separations and the bonus dads and bonus moms in the picture. It just matters that everybody's present.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. And I believe that if you make, as I say, like if you work on your stuff, like the emotional side and try to deal with all those things, that definitely help. But the thing is, it takes time, as we talked about. It takes time, right? And then I think for every relationships, every divorce is different.
Absolutely.
Right? And the way people approach things is also very different. The way people deal with things is also different. Right? Some people, you might take them 5 years and they can build that friendship. They can build that relationship. Right? Other people might take 10, 15, 20 years for them to get to the point where they feel comfortable with this person to get to that point. For other people, it might take the kids to graduate from college or from high school. Right? But the thing is, as I say, people are very different. And people in their approach also are very different. But for what I'm saying is, for at least for my part, we have worked. I think because also my divorce happened in 2017 as well, right?
Wow.
So we have worked, and I'm going to say for myself, I have worked personally on my side, on the emotional side, is to get to the point where I am. To now, when I'm with my ex-wife, I can sit and talk to her. Like, we can be in the same room and discuss. We can be in the same room, crack jokes about our children. Right? It doesn't phase us anymore. I think we had a conversation. Was a parents teacher conference, and it was the first time in years that me and her sat in the same spot or close to each other, and the kids were there, and just for us interacting and even laughing, and then she was telling me things that the kids were doing at home, and then we started laughing, and I'm looking at my sons. You can see how happy they were to see that. So I'm like, okay, if we can do this, then let's try to implement a lot more stuff like that so that they see something positive. It doesn't mean that because mom and dad are not in the same room or are separated, that they cannot cultivate a certain level of friendliness or something like that. Exactly. And then we saw that at least I saw it with the children. And I saw how their reaction to it, especially my firstborn son, like where his feeling on his face, like you can see how he was reacting to also seeing us laughing like that. So I'm like, okay, like maybe that's something that we should implement more and more moving forward. So every time that we are in the same space, I try my best to get close to her, say hi, say a few things here and there. If there's a conversation that's happening. But the thing is, all those things you have to try, right? And because I feel this way, that doesn't mean that she also feel that way, right? She might feel differently, right? So understanding that there's also a barrier, the other person where the person feels safe. All right. So I can't just come and bum rush everything and then crash. No, I have to push to the level where she feels safe and comfortable. And then we move forward. We move from there. Yeah, but I think over time, it's just a conversation. And I'm pretty sure that she's open to conversation. We've had a few conversations over time, over the years. And more recently, though, it's been a little better. To be honest, it's been a little better more recently. But it takes as I say, it takes an effort. It takes an effort. It takes time. It takes effort. And also, basically, you have to put the kids in the center of things. Because if you put yourself in the middle, all you're going to see is just your pride. How did my pride was touched? How did she bruise my pride? How did my ego feel? And all those. And that's not conducive to a good relationship, right? So when you put the kids in the center, the question now, the question that you're going to start asking yourself is no longer how is this affecting me, but it's more of how is this affecting them?
Absolutely.
Right? How is it affecting the children? So when I do this, or when me and their mom are doing this, how is it affecting them? So once you put yourself outside of the equation and put the children in the center of the equation, then things start to change. Right? But it takes time to build that. Right? It takes time to get to that point. And as you said, I do believe that over time, it's building. You have to build the relationship to those kind of level.
Yeah.
Right. You have to. It's for not only your best interest, but also the best interest of the children as well, because the harmony. It's whether we like it or not, the other person is still going to be your family.
Their family for life.
Just for life, because you have two kids with them. That's your family, regardless of what you feel, how you feel. It's your family.
Yeah.
right? So you're gonna have to learn how to deal with your family,
Yeah.
right?
It never goes away. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what, we're in the process of dealing with death in our family. When my father passed, their dad showed up. Not only did their dad show up, his parents showed up. You know what I mean? Because we're still family.
Yeah.
I mean, it is imperative to show that to the kids. The other question, though, I only have like 2 more questions, but the main question is, what role or when do you have discussions with your children about the change in the dynamic of you and the other parent? So be it, you and your ex-wife, like me and the ex-husband, like, when do you decide to say, because when you were talking about the lightening of the face that your son had, seeing you and your ex-wife having harmonious conversation, laughing and being not at distant, not at odds, a lot of times, for young children, I'm only speaking more so for young children who per se don't understand the levels of relationships or the interactions of relationships. They immediately see you happy go lucky, and it's like, ooh, I'm gonna get my family back. Mama and daddy gonna get back together. Like, oh, I'm excited. You know what I mean? And they have that glimmer of hope beaming on the inside of them that they may not ever say anything out loud. But they're watching and waiting, and the hope is building as they see the interaction between the two of you continue to build in a positive manner. Do you have to have a conversation that says, hey, I know you've been witnessing mom and dad having, chummy conversations, being able to laugh again, being able to be in the same room again. I just want to be clear that does not indicate that we're getting back together or that your family is going to be mended underneath the same roof.
Well, to me, that conversation started very early, right? Very, very early. I remember the first conversation that I had with my children about that was I was actually I picked them up from their mom, and we were spending it was my day to spend time with them. We were driving home, and my firstborn child started a conversation. I don't know how it started, but he asked me if I was going to go back with them, with their mom. I'm like, I'm like, I'm like, at this point, mom and I are separated. Like, we're done. I try to make him understand that the situation was not going back to that level. And he's like, but when 2 people are mad at each other, they forgive each other. I'm like, yes, they do forgive each other, but that doesn't mean that they go back to where the way things were. Right? It's just like things. There's certain things that you can forget and move past, and there are other things that prevent you from even going back to the way things were. But that doesn't mean that we don't love you.
Right.
Right? That doesn't mean that we're not going to do our best to make sure that you have, that you are taken care of. I'm like, I'll give my life for you, for both of you. And I'm 100% sure that your mom's going to do the same thing too.
Absolutely.
So we are behind you. Just because we're living in separate houses, just because we are not together anymore, that doesn't mean that we are not going to be there for you guys. You are our priority.
Right.
And that's never going to change. Right. And I think that stayed. And over time, he started asking less and less questions, because I think he understood now that things are not going to go back to the way they used to. He's happy to see me and his mom talking and
getting along.
right? I think that's where the happiness comes from.
Yeah.
But as for them two going back with each other, I think in his mind, you already know that it's not going to happen. Yeah, it's over.
Yeah.
So I think we had over the years, since 2017 till now, we've had at least, I believe, 3 or 4 conversations like that. Right, where he understood. So at this point, he understood that it's a done deal.
Yeah.
But when I see them laughing, when I see them happy, when I see them interacting,
yeah,
it's just a different dynamic. He's happy about that. He's happy that we are 2 important person in his life, and the 2 important people in his life are getting along, and we're making an effort just for them. And I think that goes a long way.
Absolutely.
But those conversations, they have to start as early as possible, because you don't want to get to a point where your child, I think as a parent, you have to encourage this conversation, and sometimes you have to create it, right? Because you don't want the kid to go a long time, build that hope, and then get to a point where things don't happen the way he wanted to happen. He become disappointed, and the disappointment lead to anger, and then he started developing anger issues, or a lot of different things that comes with that, like behavioral issues as well, right? Why? Because he was harboring a hope, and that hope didn't get realized, and become angry at you. He become angry at the parents, and become angry at everybody. You don't want to get to that point, right? So that's why you need to, as a parent, you need to start dealing with those emotions as early as possible. Have them talk. Let them express themselves. Let them say what they have to say, right? And then
Absolutely.
from what they tell you, now you can tell them clearly what it is, or where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Right?
So that they have a clear understanding.
Exactly.
Absolutely. 100% agree. If you could define successful co-parenting in one sentence, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a heavy one right there.
I saved the best for last. Of course.
In one sentence?
Yes.
Because it's so difficult to put into one sentence, because co-parenting, like anything else, is it's a process. It's a process. For some people, it starts early and then they're able to do this, but it's a very small part of people that get divorced. But for the majority, it starts very badly. But if you put in the effort, and then you understand that the priority are the children, then you can make it successful. So, okay, let me put it this way. Put your children first. To me, that's the only solution for successful co-parenting. Put your children first. If you cannot do that, if you only put yourself or your anger, then all you're going to do is just fighting all the time. All right? Fighting not only yourself, but fighting also the other person. But in one sentence, successful co-parenting, put your children first. That's all.
Absolutely. So we talk a lot about self-love on this channel. And so integrating self-love into co-parenting, for me, is more so, as you mentioned before, when you get out of that relationship, you start focusing on you, rebuilding you, and fueling yourself, healing yourself in order to be a whole self for your children. So even when you're putting your children first, you're also putting yourself first by basically showing up whole in order to put them in a priority. So it's just me. I say, for me, I agree with you in reference to a successful co-parenting is putting your kids first. That is ultimate, because it's not about you and your emotions towards that other partner as much as it's about their successful life that they need to have that is not full of trauma and turmoil, right? And so when you learn how to love you, you also teach them how to love themselves. And so being able to demonstrate what love is starts with you, flows to them, but you are putting them first. You're putting them as a priority when you get your own stuff in order. Because when you don't, it's a mess that you provide, and it's a mess that they live in. And
Totally
I want to
agree.
say thank you so much for joining me. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a good conversation.
Yeah, I know we had a difficult time aligning to figure it out a good time, but we made it happen.
Works.
So I'm very happy it happened this way.
Yes, and tell the people where they can find you, where they can reach you.
Pretty much. You can get me on Instagram. I think it's your_neighborhood therapist. I'm also your neighborhood therapist on TikTok. I have my social media open. I run my own. Also, I have my own podcast, Rising and Thriving Podcast. I'm also, as I say, I'm also a therapist. I'm also a transformational coach. You can also find myself on LinkedIn. So anywhere like Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook as well. So anywhere social media platforms. And I have my website, www.yvestmukanya.com, and you can join me there as well.
Awesome. Again, thank you for joining me. Everybody, you know what we say. Love yourself so much that love from others is a bonus. Happy Tuesday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.
That's a wrap on another episode of Loving Me Before I Love You. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to show your support by subscribing and leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Stay connected with Tammy. Make sure you're following her on Instagram and TikTok at Coach Tammy Nicole. If you like to work with Tammy or have any questions you like her to answer, please head over to www.IamTammyNicole.com. Until next time, always remember to love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus.